"You okay, ma'am?" "Step back a little," Officer Marcus Walker said, his voice calm but firm, as he approached the silver Porsche slumped on the side of Route 285. The rear tire was shredded rubber, peeled and hanging like torn skin, and the woman standing beside it looked nearly as deflated. She blinked behind her sunglasses, trying to steady her breath. It just exploded, out of nowhere. Marcus gave a single nod and crouched by the tire. "Happens. Heat on this road eats rubber for breakfast." He looked up, squinting slightly against the midday sun. "You alone?" "Yes," she said, adjusting her scarf. "And apparently stranded." "Not anymore," he replied, already heading to her trunk. "You got a spare?" "I think so." He didn't answer, that just opened the trunk and found the untouched spare, still wrapped in manufacturer's tape. A faint smirk flickered across his lips. "This one still got showroom dust." She crossed her arms, watching him work in silence. The desert wind tossed her hair across her cheek. He moved with the kind of efficiency she recognized someone who knew what he was doing and didn't need to prove it. No theatrics, no small talk, just the focused rhythm of someone who took pride in the job, however small. "You do this often?" she asked. "Fix tires." "Sometimes. Fix days. That's hit or miss." She gave the faintest laugh. It surprised her. He looked up then, just briefly, but it was enough. There was something in his eyes. Not flirtation, not ego, just presence and honesty. The kind that rarely showed up in the circles she used to live in. He stood, wiping his hands on the leg of his uniform pants. "You're good to go. Just don't push it too far. Santa Fe's your safest bet for a real replacement." She reached for her wallet. "Let me." He held up a hand. "No need, miss." "William. Maya William." His eyes flickered for half a second. Recognition, maybe, or just instinct. But he didn't say anything, just nodded. "I'm Marcus," he said, already walking back to his cruiser. "You sure you don't want anything?" she asked. "At least a coffee?" He gave a half smile. "Already had mine, but thanks." And just like that, he was gone, kicking up desert dust behind him as the patrol cruiser disappeared down the long stretch of sunburned road. That night, Maya lay on a stiff mattress in a roadside inn just outside Santa Fe. The air smelled faintly of old tobacco and lemon cleaner. On the table beside her lay her phone, buzzing with unanswered texts. Her lawyer, her assistant, a board member who'd once called her the future. She didn't check any of them. Her eyes kept drifting back to the moment that afternoon, not the tire, not the panic, but the way that man had looked at her. Not through her, at her, like she was human. Not a scandal, not a headline. 2 days later, she found herself walking through the narrow aisle of a local cafe tucked between a pawn shop and a feed store on the edge of town. She wasn't sure why she had come. She told herself she was just hungry. And then she saw him, Marcus Walker, in a dark blue t-shirt and jeans, sitting at the back counter, stirring sugar into a chipped mug of coffee. The same quiet steadiness about him, the same stillness in the noise. Their eyes met. He froze for just a second. Then he smiled just enough to soften the air between them. "Well," he said, "fancy seeing you again." She smiled back, surprised by her own warmth. "Looks like the universe has a better GPS than I do." He nodded toward the seat beside him, and she sat down. And just like that, what started as a flat tire on a forgotten road became the first crack in her walls. Not because he fixed it, but because he saw her. And in a world where perception was everything, that small moment of honesty felt revolutionary. If this quiet beginning pulled at something in you, don't keep it to yourself. Tap like, share the moment, or drop a comment below. The diner was quiet except for the hum of the old ceiling fan and the occasional hiss from the griddle behind the counter. The waitress, a woman in her 60s with a name tag that read, Dot, gave Maya a second look, one that flickered with recognition, but no judgment before she turned to refill another patron's mug. Maya slid into the seat next to Marcus, her back still a little stiff from the long ride and even stiffer from nerves she couldn't explain. "Didn't expect to see you again," Marcus said, lifting his coffee to his lips. His voice was even, but there was a flicker in his eyes somewhere between curiosity and caution. "Honestly, me neither." She glanced down at the menu but didn't read it. "I just kept thinking about our conversation, or lack of one, really." He smiled faintly. "Sometimes silence says plenty." She nodded, then looked at him. "You said something the other day. About me looking more tired than the tire. Her voice was softer now. That stuck with me. Marcus set his cup down. Didn't mean to offend. You didn't. She paused. You were just honest. He studied her for a moment, then leaned back slightly on his stool. Most people don't want honesty, especially when it's quiet. Maya exhaled a laugh through her nose. Well, I've had enough noise to last a lifetime. Dot came by with a steaming pot. You want coffee, sweetheart? Black. Thanks. As the waitress moved away, Marcus asked, So, what brings you back to this dusty end of nowhere? She hesitated, fingers tracing the edge of the napkin. I guess I needed to see if what I felt out there on that road was real. He didn't speak. He just waited. I've spent the last 8 years in conference rooms with polished mahogany tables and people who shake your hand while planning how to push you out, she said. And then, there you were. No contract, no business card. Just a man with a wrench and some decency. Marcus didn't smile this time, but his expression softened. I guess I just wanted to say thank you, she added, quieter now, for seeing me. Not the headlines, not the car, just me. For a moment they sat in stillness again, the kind that felt earned. Well, he said after a long breath. That's a first. What is? A CEO tracking me down just to say thanks. She tilted her head, half challenging. I'm not a CEO anymore. He raised an eyebrow. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? Ask me in a month, she replied. Or maybe in 5 years. He chuckled softly and gestured toward her hands. You don't strike me as someone who does anything without a plan. I used to be that way, she admitted. Now, I'm just trying to figure out what it means to breathe without strategy. Marcus looked at her thoughtfully. You know, he said, there's something freeing about not being needed for what's on your resume. Is that what this place gives you? She asked, nodding toward the dusty cafe. He glanced around. Nah, this place just gives me decent coffee and a break between shifts. But the job? Yeah. When people call, they don't care if I got a degree or wear a suit. They just need someone to show up. She was quiet for a moment, then leaned forward slightly. Do you like it? Being a cop, I mean. Marcus's jaw flexed subtly before he answered. Most days. Some days. It's hard to remember why I put on the badge. Then someone breaks down, or a kid's missing, or a house needs checking after a storm and I remember. It's not the badge that matters. It's showing up. She nodded slowly. You're a better man than most people I worked with. I'm not sure about that, he said, but I'm not trying to sell anyone anything either. Maya smiled. I was raised to believe that power meant having the loudest voice in the room. Lately, I'm starting to think it's about being the quietest one who still shows up. Their eyes met across the chipped counter. So, she said after a moment, do you ever take a day off? He gave a low laugh. Rarely, but I make space when it matters. Would lunch count as something that matters? He looked at her, eyes steady, unreadable. Depends on who's asking. She smiled. Someone who's not sure what she's doing, but knows she doesn't want to drive away just yet. He tilted his head, thought for a beat, then nodded. There's a place about 10 minutes out, near the ridge. Real food, fewer judgmental booths. She grabbed her purse. Lead the way. As they walked out of the diner, the bell above the door jingled, and Dot watched them from behind the counter. She poured another cup of coffee and murmured to herself. About time that boy had something good walk through that door. Outside, the sunlight was softer now, less harsh than midday, as if the desert had exhaled. Maya slid into her car and waited for Marcus to pull out ahead in his patrol cruiser. She watched his taillights for a moment before turning the ignition. For the first time in weeks, she wasn't trying to outrun anything. She was just following something real. The road to Ridgeview Cafe curved through the lower canyons, where the scrub brush thinned and the air cooled slightly under the stretch of cottonwood trees. Maya followed Marcus's patrol cruiser at a steady distance, her fingers loose on the steering wheel, her mind strangely quiet. It had been years since she let herself just drive, not toward a meeting, not away from a crisis, just forward, following someone who hadn't tried to impress her, pity her, or use her. He'd just helped her, and then looked her in the eye. 10 minutes later, they pulled into a gravel lot beside a modest building with a corrugated tin roof and an American flag hanging limp in the still air. Ridgeview Cafe wasn't much to look at paint peeling. One cracked neon sign that just said, Burgers and Shakes. But it smelled like heaven. Grilled onions, mesquite smoke, fresh baked bread. Marcus stepped out and waited by the door. Told you. Real food. She smiled as she climbed out. I half expected you to take me to a taco truck behind a gas station. That was plan B, he said, holding the door open for her. Inside, the place had the warmth of age-old license plates nailed to the walls, Polaroids pinned to corkboards, wood-paneled booths with cushions that had seen generations of small-town gossip. A jukebox in the corner played something slow from the 70s Al Green or Otis Redding. She couldn't quite tell. A waitress in a floral apron looked up and grinned at Marcus. Well, look what the badge dragged in. He chuckled. Hi, Denise. Got a table for two that doesn't sag in the middle? Denise gave Maya a curious glance but nodded toward a booth near the window. You bringin' trouble in that pretty dress? Maya just smiled. Depends on your definition. They sat opposite each other, menus already on the table. Maya glanced over the laminated options. You've been coming here a while. Since I was 17, Marcus said. First paycheck from the mechanic shop went straight to a double cheeseburger and a chocolate shake. Comfort food, she said. Something like that. You? She looked at him. What do you mean? What was your first splurge? She paused, then gave a wry smile. A second-hand Prada blazer I found in a thrift shop. I was 20, just started at the startup that would become Solaris. He leaned back, intrigued. Let me guess. You wore it to a pitch meeting. I wore it to every pitch meeting for the first year, even when it was 92 degrees outside. He laughed. Now that's commitment. No, she said. That was desperation disguised as ambition. And they ordered a burger with everything. She, a grilled chicken sandwich with no onions, and when the waitress walked away, the space between them filled not with awkwardness, but with ease. I didn't Google you, he said after a moment. She looked surprised. Most people would. I figured if I needed to know, you'd tell me. She folded her hands on the table. I was CEO of a company called Solaris Cleantech. We built solar panels, clean energy grids for low-income communities. We got big fast, too fast. And last month, the board voted me out. Said I'd become too emotionally involved with unscalable projects. Translation: I wanted to help poor people without asking them to subscribe. Marcus exhaled slowly. That sounds like something that shouldn't surprise me. It still surprised me, she said. I built that company with my father. After he passed, it was all I had. He nodded, letting her words settle. I lost my dad too. Stomach cancer. Took him quick. He was the one who taught me how to fix things with my hands. Taught me that nothing broken ever stays broken, unless you give up on it. She looked at him quietly. Do you believe that, still? He hesitated, then said, I try to. Their food arrived, interrupting the wait in the air, but not dispelling it. They ate in slow bites, letting time stretch without pressure. Midway through the meal, she leaned forward and said, Can I ask you something? And I need the honest version, not the polite cop version. He wiped his mouth with his napkin. Shoot. What did you think when you saw me out there with the flat tire? He paused. First thought, that's a damn nice car for this road. Second, that you looked like someone who wasn't used to needing help. Third, he met her eyes. That you let me help anyway. That told me everything I needed. She looked down at her plate, then back at him. You make it hard to keep my guard up. Good, he said softly. You shouldn't have to live behind it. After lunch, they stood beside their cars. The afternoon sun cast a warm light across the gravel, long shadows stretching toward the horizon. You heading back to Santa Fe? He asked. I'm not sure, she said honestly. I was supposed to meet my aunt, but I might stay an extra night, maybe clear my head somewhere that doesn't echo. He pulled a card from his wallet plane. No logo, just his name and a phone number. If your tire acts up again, he said, or if you just need a coffee. She took it, fingers brushing his. Thanks, she said. For the card? For the space. As she slid into her car, he tapped lightly on her window before stepping back. Take care, Maya. She rolled the window down just enough to say, You too, Officer Walker. Then she drove away, not quickly, not slowly, just steady. with the card still in her hand. Behind her, Marcus stood in the gravel lot, watching until the card disappeared behind the ridge. For a man who spent his life fixing what was broken, he couldn't help but wonder if maybe, this time, something new was beginning. 3 weeks later, the invitation arrived hand-delivered in an ivory envelope with silver-embossed lettering. Marcus didn't open it right away. He'd just gotten off a 12-hour shift, dust still clinging to his boots, and the last thing on his mind was anything wrapped in ribbon. He tossed it on the kitchen counter, beside a half-eaten sandwich and a pair of old keys he still hadn't returned to his landlord after fixing her fence. It wasn't until later that night, when the hum of the ceiling fan and the flicker of the television couldn't quiet his thoughts, that he picked it up. He didn't need to read much. Just one line inside the card caught his attention. "I'd like you to be there not for the crowd, not for the cameras, but for me. Maya." The gala was in Santa Fe, an annual charity auction held by the Solar Equity Alliance, a group Maya had helped found years before. He'd seen her name dropped from their board in the news earlier that month. Just another quiet expulsion dressed up in press-friendly language. Now here she was, inviting him into that same world again. He wasn't sure why he said yes. Maybe it was the way her voice lingered in his head. Maybe it was the quiet between them at Ridgeview Cafe that had stuck deeper than most conversations ever did. Or maybe, just maybe, it was the first time in years he'd been asked not for what he could do but for who he was. He borrowed a dark blazer from his cousin, polished his best boots until the leather didn't protest, and drove the hour-long route through the hills toward the hotel ballroom. When he stepped through the wide glass doors of the venue, the temperature dropped by 20 degrees. The air inside was cool, perfumed, humming with the sound of money in motion. Crystal chandeliers hung like frozen rivers above tailored suits and sequined gowns. Waiters in black carried trays of champagne, and everyone seemed to know the dance of wealth without needing music. Marcus stood just inside the entrance, unsure whether to move forward or retreat. Then he saw her. Maya stood near the center of the room in a navy evening gown, simple, elegant, nothing flashy. Her hair was swept back, her posture effortlessly regal. But it wasn't the dress or the setting that held his gaze, was her eyes. They searched the room once, landed on him, and lit up like a porch light left on for someone who might not come home. She crossed the room in slow steps, ignoring the murmurs that followed her path. When she reached him, she didn't speak at first, just looked at him, as if grounding herself. "You came," she finally said. He offered a slight smile. "Well, I had a card." She smiled, then touched his arm gently. "Come on. I want to introduce you." He followed her through a sea of curious eyes and half-formed whispers. A few people greeted Maya with the thin warmth of political courtesy, but most ignored Marcus altogether or worse, glanced at him like he was a misprint. "This is Marcus Walker," Maya said, stopping at a group of 3 men in tailored tuxedos. "He's with the New Mexico State Police. Helped me out when I—" One of the men, silver-haired and holding a glass of wine too delicately for someone that large, cut her off. "Ah, yes. The tire incident. We've heard." Maya's smile thinned. "I'm sure you have." The man turned to Marcus, extended a limp hand. "Pleasure, officer. You're quite the story." Marcus shook it once, firmly. "I prefer reality to stories." The man's smirk faltered. Maya led Marcus away, jaw tight. "They don't matter," he said lowly. She stopped. "They do. Or at least, they used to. And maybe that's the problem." They stood near the balcony doors now, the noise of the party blurred behind them. "You okay?" he asked. She looked at him. But I wanted you here. Because for the first time in a long time, I didn't want to face this alone." He didn't say anything, just nodded once. A few moments later, a man in his 30s with a confident gait and drink in hand sauntered over. His smile was wide and polished, but his eyes had a glint of something sharper. "Maya," the man said, "didn't expect to see you tonight. Or your date." Marcus glanced at Maya. She tensed slightly but held steady. "Connor," she said, "you still with Altira Ventures?" "For now," he said, then looked at Marcus. "And you are?" "Marcus Walker." "Ah." "The man with the wrench," Connor said, grinning like he'd told a joke. Marcus didn't respond. Connor turned to Maya. "I've always admired your ability to turn charity into performance art." Before Marcus could speak, Maya stepped in, her voice calm but edged. You know, Connor, it's funny. I don't recall asking for your admiration or your opinion. Connor raised his glass and walked away with a smirk. Marcus exhaled, jaw tight. Is that normal? Too normal, she said. But it's not your job to absorb their ignorance. I'm used to being underestimated. It's quiet, but not unfamiliar. She looked at him. I hate that you're used to it. He met her eyes. I hate that you still let them close enough to hurt you. There was a pause, not cold, just full of truth. Let's get out of here, she said. They walked out through the terrace doors, leaving the buzz of the ballroom behind. Outside, the night air was crisp, filled with the smell of distant sage and city lights below the hills. I thought this would feel like a return, she said, arms crossed against the chill, but it feels like a wake. Marcus leaned against the railing. Maybe it is. End of something that never really loved you back. She turned to him. And what if I'm not ready to grieve that? He looked at her gently. Then don't. Just be here. Right now. She moved closer. And you? I'm not here for them. I'm here for the woman who handed me coffee and space and didn't ask for anything back. Silence stretched. Then she whispered, I wish you'd kissed me when we were at Ridgeview. He turned, eyes steady. I wanted to. I didn't want it to be lost in something halfway. She nodded. And now? He leaned forward slowly, deliberately, giving her time to step away. She didn't. The kiss was quiet, warm, nothing dramatic, but it didn't need to be, because it felt like home. And in a world full of noise and masks, they both knew they'd found something neither of them expected, something real. The kiss lingered in Maya's mind long after the hotel lights disappeared in the rearview mirror. She drove in silence that night, the road back to her aunt's ranch unspooling like a quiet ribbon in the dark. Every mile seemed to erase more of the noise from that ballroom every backhanded compliment, every thin-lipped smile. But it couldn't erase what she knew was coming. By the next morning, it had arrived. Her phone lit up with notifications before she even rolled out of bed. Dozens of messages, voicemails, links, articles. Fallen CEO caught cozying up with state cop at charity gala. From boardroom to badge Maya, Williams surprising +1. What happened to the queen of clean tech? Maya sat at the edge of the bed, bare feet on the hardwood floor, phone in hand. She didn't cry. She didn't curse. She just stared, numb, as the same people who once called her visionary now spun her affection into recklessness. Her aunt knocked once before opening the door, carrying a tray with tea and toast. You didn't sleep, the older woman said. I didn't need to. The world kept spinning without me. Her aunt set the tray down and sat beside her. What happened last night? I invited Marcus to the gala. Her aunt didn't flinch. Good. About time you brought someone real into that fake world. The press doesn't think so. Since when did you care what the press thinks? Maya looked at her, hollow-eyed. Since investors started calling. Her aunt's voice softened. Then maybe it's time you stop letting those men rent space in your heart. Later that day, she sat on the back porch, staring out at the distant hills, her laptop balanced on her knees. She drafted 4 versions of a statement and deleted them all. Nothing sounded right. Everything felt like either defense or surrender. Neither felt true to what that kiss had meant. Then, her phone buzzed. Not a news alert. A text. From Marcus. Heard the circus started. You holding up? She stared at the screen for a moment, then typed back. I'm fine. Sort of, I think. They're going after you too. I figured. But I'm not the one they're used to controlling. I want to talk. In person. You know where to find me. That evening, Maya pulled into the gravel lot behind the Ridgeview Cafe. The sun was just beginning to set, casting long shadows across the lot. Marcus stood leaning against the back of his cruiser, arms folded, a half-finished coffee on the hood beside him. She stepped out without a word, walked to him, and handed him her phone. He looked at the screen, at the headlines. I'm sorry, she said. I never meant for any of this to fall on you. He handed the phone back. You didn't do this. They did. But I dragged you into it. He looked at her, voice low. You didn't drag me. I walked in. She sighed, shoulders slumping. I finally feel like I'm finding something real, and now it's being twisted into spectacle. Marcus nodded slowly. That's what they do when they're afraid. They turn sincerity into scandal. She met his eyes. And are you afraid? Not of them, he said. But I'm afraid of losing what this could be. Her throat tightened. So am I. They stood there for a moment in the thickening dusk, the first stars beginning to pierce the sky. I've been thinking, she said, about that community hub I told you about. The one with tools, mentorship, training for kids who never got a real start. I remember. I want to do it. Still, maybe more than ever. He studied her. Maya, you're being called reckless for kissing a cop in a borrowed suit. You really think they'll fund a project like that now? She looked down, then back up. I don't care. I'll fund it myself if I have to. I need to build something that no one can vote me out of. Something that doesn't depend on boardrooms and press cycles. Marcus was quiet. Then he asked, why me? Because you're the only person I've met in years who fixes things without asking if they're worth fixing. That silenced him. She stepped a little closer. I can't promise the press will stop. I can't promise it won't get harder. But I can promise that if we build this, it'll matter. He nodded slowly. Then let's build it. But we do it our way. Quiet. Ground up. No red carpets. No ribbon cuttings. No ballrooms, she added. He smiled faintly. Especially no ballrooms. A moment passed. Then she reached into her bag and pulled out a folded sketch, a simple layout of a one-story building with shared workbenches, a tool wall, a teaching space. It's just a draft, she said. But I wanted you to see it. Marcus unfolded it carefully, his eyes scanning the page. Blue ink, ruler lines. Notes in the margins that read like hopes rather than specs. You drew this? I used to draw buildings with my dad, she said. He always said if your idea doesn't fit on a napkin, it's too complicated. He looked at the sketch again, then at her. It's not too complicated. She smiled, a bit shaky. So you're in? I'm in, he said. But only if we hang a sign that says real work happens here. She laughed softly. Deal. Behind them, a train horn echoed faintly in the distance, cutting through the silence like a promise. Maya turned to watch it, and Marcus watched her. And in that moment, neither of them said it but both knew. They weren't just building a workshop. They were building a way out. Together. The warehouse wasn't much. Just an old, dust-covered building at the edge of town, tucked between a decommissioned rail line and an overgrown field of mesquite. Its walls were dented, the windows grimy, and the roof sagged on one side like it had given up mid-century and never bothered to recover. But to Marcus and Maya, it was perfect. This is it? Maya asked, stepping out of her SUV and shielding her eyes from the late morning sun. Marcus shut the door of his truck and walked up beside her. It needs work. She looked at him. You mean it needs miracles? Same thing, he said with a small grin. They'd spent the last week pulling together the basics, permits, old blueprints, a couple of volunteers who owed Marcus favors from his patrol days. Maya had fronted the initial payment in cash. No investor meetings, no board votes, just a signature and a handshake with a property owner who barely raised his eyebrows when she said, no press. Inside, it smelled of sawdust, rust, and old oil. Maya ran her fingers along one of the workbenches left behind, her heels clicking on the concrete. Then she stopped, took off the shoes, and walked barefoot. This place feels honest, she murmured. Marcus looked around. Because it doesn't pretend to be more than it is. They set up folding tables near the center, spread out the sketch Maya had drawn, now creased and coffee-stained from the diner. Next to it, Marcus had added handwritten notes measurements, material lists, and what he called reality checks. That afternoon, they worked in silence. He cleaned out tool chests and reinforced a broken beam near the back wall. She made phone calls to retired carpenters, a community college dean she used to mentor, and a former journalist who now ran a vocational blog with 100,000 readers. By sunset, Maya was covered in a light film of dirt, her once ivory blouse smudged with something oily. Marcus had a gash on his forearm, shallow but bleeding just enough to make her worry. You need stitches? She asked, coming over with a roll of paper towels. I've had worse shaving, he muttered. She dabbed the cut gently anyway. You could have said no to all of this. I could have, he said, watching her, but I didn't want to. Their eyes met, steady and quiet. Later that week, the noise started again, but not from jackhammers or saws. From People, an op-ed appeared in a business magazine, thinly veiled. When disgraced leaders reinvent themselves as community saviors, comments poured in. Anonymous ones, some casual, some cruel. Marcus found Maya on the third day, sitting in the back of the warehouse, laptop closed, staring out through a dusty window. "Bad day?" he asked. She nodded. "They called it a vanity project. Said I'm throwing money at a cop I barely know." He sat beside her. "Do you care what they say?" "I thought I didn't," she whispered. "But when it's all you hear, it starts to echo." He rested his arm on his knee. "You know what I hear?" "What?" "I hear nails being driven into wood. I hear a teenager learning how to use a lathe. I hear someone saying, 'I didn't think anyone would teach me this.'" She looked at him. "That's the only sound we build for," he said. The next morning, they hung a banner over the entrance. "William and Walker Institute. Real work happens here." The name wasn't flashy. It wasn't designed to impress donors. It simply told the truth. And the community noticed. One by one, they started showing up. A retired welder named Hank, who said he missed teaching kids how to respect a flame. A woman named Selena, who used to run HR at a hardware store and offered to manage their intake forms. Two young men from a re-entry program asked if they could just watch while Marcus worked. He handed them gloves instead. Maya built a database and quietly launched a landing page. No headshots, no bios. Just an open invitation. If you want to build something, come. The first Saturday, 15 people showed up. A week later, 34. The local news asked for a quote. Maya declined. She just emailed them a photo of Marcus standing beside a bench, guiding a boy with trembling hands through a careful cut in oak. The caption read, "Hope has a tool belt." That night, after everyone left, Maya sat on the tailgate of Marcus's truck, sipping from a thermos of black coffee. Her hair was tied back with a pencil, her hands blistered but warm. Marcus sat beside her, their legs dust-covered and dangling in the dry wind. "You ever think we bit off more than we could chew?" she asked. He shrugged. "I've chewed worse." She laughed, leaned her head lightly against his shoulder. "They're going to come after me again," she said softly. "The board, the press, they think this is about redemption." He looked out toward the workshop, golden light spilling from the windows. "It's not redemption if you never sinned." She looked at him. "You're not afraid?" "I've been underestimated my whole life," he said. "It doesn't scare me anymore, but it does fuel me." Silence settled around them, not empty, but full of the kind of peace earned through work. Then, almost too quietly to catch, he said, "You're not the only one who lost something." She looked up. "I lost faith," he continued, "in people, in fairness, in second chances. But you showing up every time, no matter the headlines, that started something." Her voice dropped to a whisper. "What did it start?" He turned, really looking at her. "Hope." She nodded slowly, tears unshed but present. Then she reached into her bag and pulled out a small frame. Inside, a photo taken from behind showed Marcus teaching. Hands over a student's. On the frame, in careful script, "Love builds." She handed it to him. He stared at it, then her. "Where do we hang it?" he asked. She smiled through her exhaustion. At the heart. By the second month, the William and Walker Institute was no longer a curiosity, it was a ripple, moving outward. A handful of veterans began carpooling from a neighboring town. Two mothers from the local church volunteered to bring lunch twice a week. A high school counselor sent 3 students who were close to dropping out, saying, "They trust hammers more than homework." Marcus showed them how to square their first cut. Maya taught them how to draft a blueprint with their name at the top. The workshop was raw, loud, alive, and real. But not everyone was celebrating. It started with a letter anonymous, typed, mailed to the city zoning office. Then a formal complaint about safety concerns. Then a second letter, this time from a former investor, publicly questioning Maya's mental clarity in her decision to finance a vigilante vocational program. Maya held the letter in her hands on a Tuesday morning, standing in the middle of the workshop while Marcus taught a group how to install shelving. She didn't flinch, didn't crumple the paper. She folded it neatly and tucked it in her back pocket. She waited until lunch, then found Marcus behind the building, leaning against the back wall with a bottle of water and sawdust on his shirt. "We've got a storm coming," she said. He took the paper, read it once, and handed it back. "Let it come. They're not just coming for me this time. They're going to come for this place, for the people inside. Then we don't stand alone," he said. The next day, they called a meeting. Volunteers, students, mentors, they all gathered in the central bay of the shop. Some stood with arms crossed, others on makeshift stools, the smell of wood and sweat clinging to the air. Maya stepped forward. She held up the complaint letter. "This is what fear looks like," she began, typed and sent in secret. "It's what people do when they see something growing that doesn't fit in their box." She looked around at the faces staring back, young and old, brown and white, calloused and soft. "They're going to say we're unqualified, that we're unstable, that we're reckless, but they won't say we're wrong." Marcus stepped beside her. "We've built more in 60 days than some of these institutions have built in decades. Not because we had money, but because we showed up." A silence settled, not from doubt but from shared defiance. "We keep going," Maya said. "We stay visible, we stay honest, and we don't back down." The group nodded. Some clapped softly. One of the teenage boys raised his hand. "What if they shut us down?" Maya looked at him, her voice steady. "Then we find another warehouse, another bench, another wall to hang a sign on. This isn't a building, it's a belief." The next morning, reporters showed up. Not many, just 2 local stations and 1 freelance journalist. Marcus nearly turned them away, but Maya stepped forward. "If they want to watch, let them." She stood in front of the camera in work boots and a flannel shirt. No makeup, hair tied back. "This institute wasn't built for headlines," she said. "It was built for hands, for people who've been told their lives don't fit into grant proposals or stock portfolios." The clip aired that evening. It went viral by morning. Comments flooded in, some supportive, others harsh. One particularly vicious article came from a national outlet. "Is Maya William mentally stable?" The photo they used was of her holding a hammer, smiling, next to a kid with paint on his overalls. Maya didn't reply publicly, but the next day, she arrived at the institute with a new addition. A large sign over the entrance, "Hand," painted in red and black. "Mentally stable enough to build a future." Marcus raised an eyebrow when he saw it. "That's subtle." She smiled. "Figured I'd give them something to really talk about." The students loved it. One of the younger girls asked if she could help repaint the words in neon green. Maya handed her the brush. By the weekend, donations began trickling in, small amounts. From retired teachers, factory workers, even a widow in Texas who wrote, "I wish this place existed when my husband got out of prison." But then, a cease and desist letter arrived from a former partner of Solaris Cleantech. It accused Maya of publicly misrepresenting her past and current affiliations and threatened to pursue legal action if she didn't step away from the institute. Marcus found her in the workshop's small office, staring at the letter on her desk, hands folded tightly in her lap. "You okay?" he asked. She didn't look up. "They're trying to erase me. Again." He sat across from her. "You can't be erased. You're not a line item. You're a foundation." She let out a shaky breath. "They want me scared. They want me to quit." He reached over, covered her hand with his. "Then don't quit. Stand." She looked at him. "Will you stand with me?" He didn't blink. "Always." The next day, they held a press conference. No stage, no podium. Just Maya and Marcus standing in front of the workshop with the students behind them, their hands marked with ink, paint, and sawdust. Maya stepped forward. "They say I'm unstable, that I've lost credibility, that love has made me foolish." She paused, then looked straight into the cameras. "If believing in second chances makes me unstable, then I'll wear it with pride. If choosing love over fear makes me foolish, then let me be the fool who builds something that lasts longer than their memory of my resume." She stepped aside. Marcus took her place. "I was taught that justice was a courtroom and a badge," he said. "But I've learned it can also be a bench and a nail gun. It can be a place where someone walks in broken and leaves with a plan." His voice never rose, but it carried. "This building belongs to no one person. It belongs to every person who's ever been told they're too late, too broken, too far gone. It belongs to those who fix things quietly and without applause." The press stayed silent. And for the first time in weeks, Maya smiled not because she'd won, but because she knew she wouldn't lose alone. That evening, under a sky turning indigo, Maya and Marcus sat on the porch steps of the institute, their backs against the wood, their shoulders touching. "You nailed it," she said. "I didn't stutter," he replied. "No," she said. "You just turned every grown man with a microphone into a puddle." He laughed, warm and quiet. But beneath the laughter was something stronger, something immovable, something built not with permission but with purpose. Autumn arrived quietly. The air grew sharper in the mornings, and the cottonwoods near the ridge turned gold. The William and Walker Institute breathed with a rhythm now daily hammer strikes, the soft scrape of sandpaper, the hum of conversation between unlikely teachers and unexpected students. It had grown from an idea into a routine, and from a routine into a refuge. Maya stood at the edge of the training floor one morning, a mug of coffee warming her hands, watching Marcus teach a group of new apprentices how to frame a doorway. His voice was calm, deliberate, with just enough humor to keep the group engaged. One of the students, a wiry teen named Elijah Meese, aligned his cut. Marcus didn't correct him. He just asked, "Want to see another way to do it?" Elijah nodded, and Marcus showed him shoulder to shoulder, not top down. Maya smiled. This was what she had dreamed about. Not the press conferences, not the drama, just this. Skills passed from calloused hands to hungry ones, dignity reborn in wood and sweat and trust. But the calm didn't last long. A black SUV pulled into the lot. Clean, corporate, too shiny for the gravel. A man stepped out, gray suit, thin tie, sharp smile. He introduced himself to the receptionist as Grant Keller, legal representative for Altira Ventures. Maya heard his name and felt the chill before the door even opened. Grant walked into the workshop like he owned it. He spotted Maya instantly, offered his hand. "Maya, always a pleasure." She didn't take it. "You're not supposed to be here." "I'm not here to fight," he said smoothly. "Just to clarify, the complaint was filed with the intention of ensuring your project meets compliance standards. We wouldn't want any liabilities." She raised an eyebrow. "Your client tried to strip my name from everything I helped build." "And you landed on your feet," he said, glancing around. "Impressive, really. Though I imagine the financial pressure must be intense." She folded her arms. "What do you want, Grant?" He leaned closer. "There's an offer on the table. Altira is prepared to purchase this property. Fair market value, no hard feelings." Maya didn't flinch. "You want to buy the place, so you can shut it down quietly? We'd rebrand it, pivot the narrative, position you as a visionary who moved on gracefully." She laughed once, humorless. "So the girl with dirt under her nails doesn't mess up the investor narrative?" Grant's smile tightened. "We both know this isn't sustainable. No donors, no endowment, just grit and a handful of carpenters." She stepped forward, her voice low but fierce. "This place doesn't run on their permission. It runs on purpose. You think we're weak because we don't fit your spreadsheet, but this workshop has given more second chances in 2 months than Altira has in 10 years. Marcus appeared behind her, silent until now. "Is there a problem here?" Grant turned, caught off guard. "Just a friendly visit." Marcus looked him over slowly. "You always show up friendly, right before you gut something." Grant's composure slipped for a second. Then he nodded and stepped back. "You'll regret not taking the offer." Maya smiled. "I've already survived worse regrets." Grant left without another word. That night, Maya sat in the office with Marcus. The lights dimmed low, a stack of unpaid invoices on the desk between them. She rubbed her temples. "He's not wrong," she admitted. "We're behind on materials, rent. We're one bad week away from collapse." Marcus leaned back in the chair, arms crossed. "We knew this wouldn't be easy, but I didn't think it would be this alone." "You're not alone." She looked at him. "I feel like I brought you into something that's going to burn down." He didn't move. "Then we rebuild it, stronger." She stared at the wall, at the photo of them with the first group of students. "What if I ask the community for help?" she said. He tilted his head. "You mean fundraise?" "Not professionally, just honestly. Tell them what's happening. Ask them to stand with us." He nodded. "It's not weakness to ask for help. It's courage." And the next morning, Maya sat in front of a camera, just her, a stool, and the workshop behind her. She didn't read from a script. She spoke. "My name is Maya William. I built a company once, and I lost it. But what hurt more was realizing I'd lost myself in the process. This place, the William and Walker Institute, it's more than hammers and nails. It's a place where people who were never seen finally get to be recognized. It's where I found my footing again. And right now, we need help to keep it going." They posted the video online, not knowing what to expect. Within 24 hours, it had 100,000 views. Within 72, a retired teacher from Chicago sent in $20. A mechanic in Tulsa sent $100 with a note, "I would have killed for a place like this growing up." A woman from Atlanta wrote, "My son's in prison. I hope there's someone like you waiting for him when he gets out." By the end of the week, they'd raised enough to pay their rent and restock tools. Enough to breathe. One evening, Marcus and Maya walked through the empty workshop, lights flickering as the last volunteers packed up. She stopped by the wall where the photo hung Marcus and Elijah sanding down a table. "You remember what I said when we started this?" she asked. "That you didn't want to build something alone?" She turned to him. "We're not just building tables, Marcus. We're building defiance." He smiled. "Then let's keep defying." The next day, Grant Keller called. Maya didn't pick up. She didn't need to, because the sound of drills, the laughter of teenagers, and the steady rhythm of purpose had already answered for her. They were staying. It was raining the morning. Maya walked into the workshop and found a folded note taped to the door. The handwriting was neat, unfamiliar. Marcus, already inside, glanced up from his clipboard. She peeled the note off the glass and read silently. "Meet me where it started. No signature, no return address." She handed it to Marcus, brow furrowed. "You think it's Keller?" Marcus read it and shook his head. Too poetic for a lawyer. Her pulse stirred with something else, curiosity, and the strange tug of memory. She stepped out, coat clutched against the cold drizzle, and drove east down that long stretch of Route 285, past the same roadside where her tire had blown all those months ago. And there, standing just off the shoulder in a navy hoodie and jeans, was Elijah. She parked and stepped out slowly. "This where it started for you too?" He turned, a shy grin on his face. Kind of figured. It was time. They sat on the back of her car, just like she had once sat on the side of the road, panicked and alone. But this time, she wasn't stranded, and neither was he. "I'm leaving next week," he said. "Trade apprenticeship in Colorado. Full scholarship. Sponsored by one of the guys who saw our video. Said I reminded him of himself." "Oh." Maya felt tears rush behind her eyes, but she kept her voice steady. "You earned it, Elijah. All of it." He nodded, quiet for a moment. "When I got out of juvie, I thought I was gonna rot. People looked at me like I was already done. But when I showed up at your place, you didn't. I saw someone trying," she said. "That's all that matters to me." He looked at her, then away. "I wanted to say thank you. Not just for letting me work, for letting me be more than what I was on paper." She squeezed his shoulder. "Promise me you'll do the same for someone else someday." "I will," he said. "You and Officer Walker, you gave me that map." That night, back at the workshop, Marcus sat in the office polishing a set of old tools when Maya walked in. Her coat was soaked, her cheeks flushed from wind and emotion. "Elijah's leaving," she said simply. Marcus smiled. "He's gonna be all right. He's gonna be great," she replied. She leaned on the doorframe. There was something in her eyes, stillness, and a quiet truth she hadn't spoken yet. "I've been thinking," she said, "about staying, not just for the project, for here." Marcus looked up. "Here, as in, not running anymore," she said. "Not building something just to prove I can win, but building it because I finally know what I want it to be." He set the tools down. "What do you want it to be?" She stepped forward, lowered herself to the seat across from him. "A place where people don't just get second chances. A place where they're safe enough to try again, and where I'm not afraid to care." They sat in that silence. Then Maya reached into her bag and handed him a folder. "City Council wants to nominate us for a civic rebuilding grant. We'll need someone to speak at the hearing." Marcus blinked. "You want me to talk to a room full of suits?" "You fixed more than just my tire, Marcus. You fixed the way I saw people. That has weight. They need to hear your voice." He paused, then nodded slowly. Only if you're sitting in the front row. Front row, she said. I promise. The hearing came 2 weeks later. Packed room, reporters, council members. Some skeptical, some supportive. Maya wore her navy blazer. Marcus wore the same suit he hadn't touched since his police retirement ceremony. But he looked taller in it now, calmer, anchored. He stood at the podium and cleared his throat. No speech in hand, just heart. My name is Marcus Walker. I was a cop for 22 years, and I thought I understood justice. I didn't. Not really. Justice isn't always what you write down in a report. It's what happens after the report's filed. It's what happens when a kid like Elijah walks into a building expecting rejection and, instead, gets handed a hammer and a purpose. He looked directly at the council. I've seen kids cry over sanding a table because it's the first thing they ever made that wasn't broken. I've seen grown men carry shame in their hands like weight, until someone said, "You still matter." That's what this place is. Not a shelter, a foundation. There was quiet. Then the chairwoman leaned forward and asked, "Why should this city invest in your workshop over more traditional programs?" Marcus didn't hesitate. Because we're not fixing buildings, we're fixing people, one life at a time. The vote was unanimous. Maya and Marcus walked out into the bright fall sun, stunned and laughing. Their hands brushed once, then again, and this time, neither of them pulled away. A month passed. The workshop expanded. New students, new funding, a sense of permanence. One night, under soft yellow light, Maya and Marcus stood in the back of the main floor, watching their team finish a custom kitchen table for a family who'd lost everything in a fire. "You remember what you told me that day by the road?" she asked. "I told you I had a spare and could help." She smiled. "Number you said, you're not stranded anymore. And you were right. I wasn't." He turned to her. "Neither was I." And as the tools quieted and the sawdust settled, the two of them stood together, no longer fixing what was broken, but building something whole, something lasting, something neither of them had known they were missing until that flat tire, that wrench, and that quiet kind of love that begins not with grand gestures, but with staying.